This podcast was recorded on traditional Denizal land.
Hello, and welcome to Before the Peace. I'm here with my co-host and producer of the podcast, Trey Lapashinsky.
Greetings, friends. This is our second episode of the Healing the Hoop Conference, our second part, we can call it. Jenna and I went to this 3-day event in May, and we met so many inspirational and knowledgeable people, and we are stoked for you to hear from them. We decided to release this conference into 2 episodes because we got multiple interviews that would not fit into an hour to 90 minutes, which we usually do.
The conference was a 3-day event focusing on resiliency, personal growth, and healing communities, and there were several people we spoke to, including the keynote speakers.
Today you'll be hearing from Knowledge Keeper David Daniels, Ojibwe-American musician Keith Secola, and Northwestern Polytechnic's elder-in-residence Loretta Parenteau-English.
Loretta was amazing. She was actually the one who did my blanket ceremony.
Yep.
And I was also a part of a pipe ceremony that she did with Christy. And I don't know, I felt a connection with her. Mm-hmm. I think she has so much knowledge that I think everybody should hear.
When she walked into the room, and I think you'll get this from the interview, because this is what I got from it, is when she just walks in the room, you just feel so comfortable. Mm-hmm. When you listen to the interview, this is like basically our first time talking with her, like a full conversation, and she was just soft-spoken, but she had so much history in her voice, and you could tell she had stories, and we wish we could sit there and talk with her, and hopefully in the future we can, for like an hour. We only got 15 to 30 minutes, I believe, with her, but yeah. She was amazing, and it was just cool. The people that came in, and I usually don't find myself an empath where I can like feel energy or vibes.
See, I can, and her energy is fantastic.
And it's great, but that's what I want to say is, and actually every guest that came in, you felt it. You felt it with Keith. You felt it with David. You felt it with our Napoleon. Like, it was just, I cannot stop raving about this conference, honestly.
Yeah. It was like, by the end of the week, I was like, so done. Like, just emotionally, but like, not in a bad way, like fulfilled, but exhausted at the same time.
Going into the weekend after the conference, I felt good. Like, I felt comfortable. I've had some mental health stuff over the past couple of years, and I think, a lot of people going to Healing the Hoop probably came away with something. There had to be takeaways. There's so much there, so many speakers, so many great speakers as well. And, Jenna was talking about her experience with Loretta and the blanket ceremony, and we mentioned that, as well as our experience with David Daniels on the first part of the Healing the Hoop conference episode we did last month. And for David, I got to see what he did in a men's fire circle with his healing practices, and we sat in a circle with all these men, and he talked about the relationship with men and women and how important it is. He talked about healing. He talked about so much with cultural healing. And there was one instance I mentioned last month, and I won't go too far into it. If you want to listen to the whole story, you can go back to the episode. But I saw David just going around kind of showing what he was doing to everyone. And he asked if anyone had back problems, just some pains. But there was one individual that actually had come in on a wheelchair. And David went up to him, talked to him, asked him about things, was kind of tugging on his leg, was whacking him with the eagle feathers, which is part of the practice, and then had him stand up. And the individual said that he usually couldn't stand up straight without 1 foot behind him, and he was standing straight up. And David looked at him, and he said, "I want you to let go and forgive what the doctors did to you."
Oh.
And the individual said to David, I already have. And then after David did some more, he was talking to the creator, and then he said thank you to the individual, and he said back to David, no, thank you. And that is the biggest thing that I took away from the whole conference. That experience, but his reaction to what David did, to how he felt.
Yeah.
And then the next day, I got to experience the same thing when David helped me with my back. And it was good for 4 days. And I lived with back pain my whole life. And it's just, I said this last time, David is just someone I want to be around me all the time. Just because, and you'll hear it in the interview, he's such a great guy. And he's a knowledge keeper. He has a lot of experiences. And he's a great guy to be around. Also, he can throw out some jokes. Like him, Keith
he went
Secola,
up on that comedy night.
Yeah.
All of them. They were all so funny.
They were really funny. And they even said, like, I know at one point Art was saying, we're not comedians, but they were funny. And Art was slinging out some...
Oh, yeah.
He had a tight 5.
Yeah. And we actually got to hang out with everybody in the evenings, too, which was fun. We kind of went back to the hotel and we jammed with Art and Keith and sang some tunes and just hung out. It was a good time.
Oh, well, you sang. I just sat in the corner, but it was awesome. Yeah, Art and Keith just jamming, some other individuals that were there as well who were part of the conference. I would like to say too, Jenna, like I feel, over the past couple months of us doing this podcast and us working together outside the podcast at work, it's we've gradually become friends. And I think we've had this cool friendship, and I think out of the conference it grew even bigger.
Yeah.
And I just think that is how I'll always remember the conference, with not only the guests and all the experiences, but it was cool to be with you there as well. And, learning things. I didn't know you could sing. She was singing when we were hanging out at the hotel room, and I was just so surprised. I was like, oh, okay, cool. She's my homie. And then you called me your work husband.
Yeah,
which is
you're my work husband, yeah.
It is what it is.
Although he beat me at basketball the other night, and I'm not happy about that.
Well,
We'll have to have a rematch.
I am a giant man, so... Okay, we got people to thank for this podcast.
Okay. This podcast wouldn't be possible without the help of Troyer Ventures. Troyer has been serving our community and the energy industry with tank and back trucks since 2000. They're built on the principles of hard work, service, and community, and they are proud to offer the financial support to make this program possible.
Also, shout out to our new sponsor, EPSCAN Industries. They are a full-service provider who brings a comprehensive management system and experienced personnel with highly targeted skill sets.
We'd also like to say thank you to Click for their support. The Cultural Learning and Innovation Circle is a not-for-profit society that offers mentorship, coaching, and training opportunities.
All right, let's get into the guests of Healing the Hoop 2022. So right now we're here with David Daniels at the Healing the Hoop conference here in Fort St. John. He is a knowledge keeper from Long Plain First Nation in Manitoba. David, yesterday I took part in the men's fire circle, and I witnessed something that brought some tears to my eye. There was a gentleman there that had nerve problems in his legs, and he was expressing to you that he hasn't walked in years, and he couldn't stand without having one leg behind him, but he was able to stand up on both feet. Can you kind of talk about the process of what you were doing in that scenario?
Yeah, in that men's circle, there's different ways in how we heal, and part of it is if they have nerve damage, like a sciatic nerve, it's easy to do. You don't have to go to a psychiatrist, or not psychiatrist.
Physiotherapist.
Or those bone...
Chiropractor?
Yeah,
chiropractors. Yeah, you don't have to go to them because it's very simple. All you have to do is pull their leg, and it releases pressure on the sciatic nerve. And people call me the miracle worker because I can do 10, 15 people at once, one right after another, and their pain is gone in a matter of minutes. So this gentleman had an accident injuring his spine, and then he had surgery, and there was a little globule behind at the tailbone. So the doctor said, well, we're going to have to do surgery. Because giving him a choice, they went ahead and gave him the surgery. As a result, he had he had an injury on the nerves, causing him pain. And it took him a while to learn how to walk. And what I did was I walked him back to the time when he was okay. Walked him back to the time before the surgery. And asked the Creator to restore all the nerves and all the things that was there before. Because actually our bodies are only 7 years old, because all our body cells are replaced every 7 years. So you can go back 7 years and actually reconfigure your DNA, your RNA, to correct all those health problems that you've had. You don't have to accept the ancestral dilemmas, like some women I know have breast cancer, and it runs in the family, and they all die by the time they're 40. But that could be corrected if you go back in time and reset the DNA. And that's what we did. So yesterday he was able to walk, and he was able to be a lot better today. And some of the other people have the upper back, so that's a different thing. But lower back problems is not an issue. This morning we did a woman's circle, and what we did was, it's called combing out the tears. It's a woman's ceremony, and what it is that women carry grief. So what we do is, they have to bring a change of clothes, and so we cover them up with blankets, hold them up. They change their clothes, and when they're ready, we drop the blankets down. Then we pray over them, and part of the prayers is that, Creator, I choose to let my pain go, my grief. I choose to let my grief to you and give it to you. Restore my balance, restore my harmony, restore the joy that I'm supposed to have. And we comb out their hair, put on ribbons, and they step out, they leave their old clothes, their clothes of mourning. We get them to put on new clothes, better clothes, and they step out of it. And then we put them to the side, and all the women who lost children, who lost family, who themselves are in grief, come and greet them and welcome back. Then the men came as well too, and they hugged these women. And it was, you should see them now. They actually are glowing with happiness. They don't have that fear, that atmosphere of darkness and sadness around them. So that's it's a woman's ceremony. So women are supposed to do that for themselves. So because the women have forgotten to do that, or they were never taught. So I carry that, and I say to them after the ceremony, says, you women, you own this now. You can do that among yourselves. Help your community out. So to restore that knowledge that was lost, so they can heal. So how do you heal the nation? You heal the nation individually, family, community, regionally, nationally, internationally. All of humanity can get healed. So that's what we can do. And this afternoon, some of the women want me to deal with murdered missing men, murdered missing women. So that's the next process we're going to talk about. How do we deal with the pain that is caused, and how do we deal with not having a body to bury, not doing things. So I've created a memorial at home. See, I lost my child at 50 years ago. The wife was pregnant, and the doctor gave her wrong medication, and that killed my child, my little girl. So, but I didn't have a chance to bury the child, to have the body, because they didn't do it back then. You just take the body and incinerate them. So, last October or so, I got up early in the morning, just as I was waking state. A little girl comes and sees me and says, "Dad, I think it's time for you to let go." It was my child. So, what I did is I created a memorial, a facility. It's a self-supporting roof called reciprocal roof, and there's a granite slab, horizontal one going up. But on this slab, it says my child, I choose to let you go. Be at peace. Because we can say rest in peace because we didn't have a chance to bury them, right? So that's for the women who were miscarried, the children who were miscarried, the children who are aborted. As of today, over 17 million abortions have taken place since January. 17 million children have been aborted. Then there's, of course, the ones that are stillborn, children that are... So on this one, the slab, you say that prayer. But on an upright one, beside it is a bird cage with a door open. And coming out of the bird cage are swallows, flying upwards. And what it means is that in our language, swallows, we call them Anishinaabe, the little Indians or little people that are yet to be born. So that's why we don't harm a swallow. They're sacred to us. So these little swallows are flying upward, back to the Creator. But when you come there, you bring big booties, little baby moccasins, socks, toys, whatever, and you, as you say this prayer, you drop it into a basket and leave your pain there. And you sit down and you pray and allow the healing to begin to happen within you so that we can have that hidden grief taken away from us. Because men suffer too. But that's a hidden grief. So we have this hidden grief. So how do we heal the nation? Is that we have to deal with the hidden grief. We have to deal with those things that are not talked about.
So what would you say to some of the listeners listening right now that, I mean, over the last few years, lots has happened. People are living in pain. They have a lot of trauma. And maybe
old trauma that's being brought back up again with
For
discoveries
sure.
of the 216 and everything like
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
So what would you say to the listeners that feel like there's no way out or they feel that pain, it's too heavy?
Well, the answer is simple. You go out, you look up into the sky, early morning, evening, whatever time, and you say this thing, Creator, Father God, whatever name you want to use, I choose to give you my pain. I choose to let go of my pain. Replace it with joy so I can come back and enjoy life again. But this grief that I've been carrying, I give it to you. Clothe me with kindness. Clothe me with healing so that I can be once again feel normal, so that we don't have the depression, we don't have the anger, we don't have that whole process of grief. So that's what I would recommend to anybody. You don't need a special ceremony for that. You just need to go out in the bush or go out on your doorstep, in your bathroom, wherever, sitting on the throne, you just say, Creator. Because no matter where he is, he listens. And walk by faith. Walk by faith is what I say. Because for me, I don't need confirmation for the prayers and the things I say and the things when I pray over people. I know the Creator listens to me. He's my boss, right? So when I pray, I walk by faith, knowing, because it says, when I yell to the fourth heaven, certainly Creator will respond to me. So he's always faithful to that. And yes, it works. We have the standing medicine people, which is our plant-based medicines. The mycelium, the fungi, the trees, rocks, all those can be healing to you. Specifically for diseases, we can cure epilepsy. We can cure other diseases. We can reverse people with addictions like cocaine, crystal meth, and all the opiates. We have been successful in treating people that way.
So my daughter actually, she just turned 7. She has epilepsy.
Yes.
So that's something that you've cured before?
Yes, I've cured 2 people with that already. Yeah, and what it is you have to determine whether it's organic or whether it's something precipitated that. And we also use different mushrooms that grow here that can actually reverse that and break that barrier and rebuild the synapses so they're not misfiring. We've done that on a couple occasions.
Wow.
But that's one thing. That's in my posts on LinkedIn, I had responses from people, because what I see is this: the major ingredient that's missing in pharmaceuticals is prayer. We pray over our medicines before we give it out. And I actually had an experiment. Take 2 glasses of water and pray over 1 glass of water. You can try it yourself. Pray over 1 glass of water. Ignore the rest. Put them in the fridge. In the freezer part of it. 24 hours later, take a look at it, and you'll find a difference. That there is a difference in the water, because prayer impacts us. Dr. Moro's work is phenomenal, but this can happen. So and the pharmaceuticals have agreed with me. Says when is the last time when you went and seen a doctor who gave you a prescription? Did they ever tell you to pray over it? No, the pharmacist doesn't even tell you. You just hear your prescription, pay your amount, and away you go. There's no other instructions than the little pamphlet they gave you. But would it be more effective when you pray over it? Because the best that Western medicine will ever do for us is treat the symptoms. They are not interested in curing the people. 2018, we did a study worldwide of the diabetes epidemic. And by 2025, we predicted there's going to be 400 million people. We reached that in 2019. Do you think pharmaceuticals are interested in solving that problem?
No.
No.
Because
they make money off of
Yeah.
it.
Because of money. There's no money in healthy people.
Mm-hmm.
So are they going to prolong those symptoms? I've had people who had as much as 17 different prescriptions being given to them, and they says, let's wean you off with our traditional medicines. And you wean them off, they finish taking their medications, they're okay. And he says, what if I run out of your medicines that you gave me? He says, don't you believe in the cure? We're not treating the symptoms, we're treating the root cause of disease. So that's what I do. I look at past, present, future of where you are and analyze what it is, and I'm being shown what medicines you need to cure your problem, cure issue.
Did you have a mentor?
Yes, look, see?
Wow, he just found $1 in the couch.
Oh, $2. Look at that. Man, I'm getting paid like crazy. $3. Oh, my. So we call these messages from heaven, messages from God.
Wow.
So I got 3 nice messages I have to interpret now.
How did you learn everything that you know? Did you have a mentor?
My grandparents were traditional medicine people.
Okay.
My grandmother was a midwife, and she taught me as a young boy to help her dig medicines. And he says, go and get me sigojibik. So I run over there and go and get sigojibik, which is a plant, right? And then she would say, that's not the right one. Go back and get me the right one. So that was her way of teaching me the correct words or the correct plants to use. Now, I knew all these medicines in Ojibwe language, so when I get to the bookstore, I found a plant book, and I leaf it, and I recognize the plant. Oh, that's sigojibik. That's the English word. Oh, that's the Latin name. And this is what it's, the environment and grows and everything. So I have an extensive library of books because I want to know. I'm curious. I'm a collector of things. I have 5,000 CDs.
Oh, wow.
that I ripped into music, and I store the originals, and so I don't have to take them back. I do genealogy histories for people. I can have 50,000 people on my genealogy history that I can connect people to. So it's a hobby that I have.
And you have like a database, right?
Yes, I have a database. Then I'm also, they call me the Renaissance man because I build buildings, structures. I design schools. I design buildings. I created the first child caring agency in Canada run by Anishinaabe people, 1980. I created our own community college called Yelko College, and we graduate 250 students a year. But that's just the starting things. I don't have to run there. I don't have to be there. And so what? If they do it, let somebody else carry on the business. Because every architect does not live in every house he designs. Mm-hmm. So I design programs, men's healing, men's wellness. We're now looking at land-based education, teaching the language as we speak. We need to man up again. So men need to learn how to take on the responsibilities of man. And how do you do that? You do that by getting them to volunteer. You get them to do things. Come on, help me here. Come on, I want to build a sweat lodge. If you don't know how to build a sweat lodge, I'll teach you how. How to do the ceremonies, how to do things. I'll teach you that. And so people are interested in learning our lost cultures, our lost ways of doing things. At funerals, I do too many of them, but I teach there why we do the funerals the way we do. Because nobody's ever explained why are we doing this. So now this gives me it's an education opportunity for people to learn our values, our traditions, and have somebody explain it properly the best we can. So that's what some of the things I do. And I come out here and I'm one of the very few people that travels. I'll go all the way from Halifax to the West Coast to the Inuvik and all points in between, and also Albuquerque, New Mexico, and I teach medicines to people of all kinds of medicines, be it fungi, that's very powerful stuff, the mushroom family, the mycelium, and all the other wonderful plants that we have, the standing medicine people. So I teach that at no cost to people, because when I'm pushing up daisies, who's going to know? So our graveyards are full of people who never had apprentices. They didn't have a chance to teach that to others. Because remember, our customs were outlawed for hundreds of years. And it went underground. But me, I work during the day. I never work at night. Let there be light. Let people know for sure what it is that they're doing. Never have a ceremony at night. Never work at night. Bring light so people can see. So when we look at doing what we do, it's also a teaching opportunity. And if you come to my service or come to my sessions, for that short period of time, at least you'll walk away with knowing something.
I want to talk about what you were saying before we press record about being a knowledge keeper and saying knowledge keeper as opposed to elder. This is something that Jenna and I just heard today and from you, and I'd like you to describe that for our listeners a little bit.
Yes, elder can be described anybody who's old, right? Or I can be a church elder. I could be an elder of the Mormon church. I can be a church elder. I can be somebody who's older. So the word elder is too broad for us. So what we use are two different terms. Knowledge keeper, somebody who knows the archaic knowledge. And wisdom keeper, person who knows how to connect things together and teach the ancient wisdom. The ancient wisdom I normally call the Paleolithic moral code that existed before civilization, before religion, before anything that happened here during the time of the Ice Age, even before that. We lived that moral code. You didn't have to teach it to us. We just lived it. We knew what to do. So that's what we want to get back to, going and instinctively knowing what is right. So the knowledge keeper is one who is a mentor, whereas a wisdom keeper keeps the ancient wisdom intact and passes it along as well. So I think that's the correct way of in our language. In our language, minikuise means he's gifted. Maundaise in our Ojibwe language, it means he's super gifted. He knows all the traditions. He knows instinctively the ceremonies, the language, the plants, and all that things, and he has a direct communication to God. My grandfather was a Maundaise, so maybe we get it from him, right?
Definitely. Our last question, we ask this to all our guests, David, is what does reconciliation mean to you?
Reconciliation is more than forgiveness. Reconciliation is hard to define in our language. It's not about forgiving. It's not about forgetting. Reconciliation to me is putting aside all our prejudices, all our historical information and misinformation that we have, and having a correct view and coming into agreement as to how can we get rid of racism, discrimination, and everything else, but looking at humanity. Let's get back to humanity. If you look at humanity, all human beings are here. We're all brothers and sisters. I can take you back on the ceremony, back to the original mother of mankind. And all that knowledge since the original mother of mankind created, all that knowledge will come to you. Boom, 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 flow down. It's easier for a woman to get that knowledge than it is for men. Because the original mother of mankind. So we don't have access, and people have never been taught that access to that ancient knowledge that has been there of women. We call women, in our language, the older women, Manitu Danisan. And Manitu means God. Danisan means daughter. Daughters of God. That's what we call women, daughters of God, or clan mothers. So if we have a knowledge keeper who is Manitu Danisan, then you have a very wise woman who can teach, because women in our society are the ones that teach culture. They're the ones that teach values. They're the ones that do everything to look after the child. So in the initial role, when the child is born, the mother carries that child. They're the water keepers. Men are fire keepers. The women do everything they can to raise that child until that child is ready to let go. You let go of the child and he goes away, a boy comes back a man. The man's responsibility is the end of life. When we have a funeral, it's the men that serve. It's the men that carry the casket. It's the men that lower the body. It's the men that sing the things. So we take care of the end part of life because that's our responsibility to do that. So when we look at our roles, we have to take a look at what was the original instructions given to us by a Creator. And that's another hour or so, but we
have so many questions. Unfortunately, we have to do them in like quick bursts for Healing the Hoop. But thank you so much, David, for talking with us. And hopefully, maybe down the road, we can have you on and talk with you a little longer because there's so much more questions to ask you. So thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome. I'm glad to be here. That's part of my responsibility and role to pass on the knowledge before I start pushing up daisies, right?
Thank you.
Right now we're with Loretta Parenteau-English. at the Healing the Hoops conference here in Fort St. John. She's an elder in residence at the Grand Prairie Polytechnic College. Talking to Jocelyn about you, she had a specific description of Blackfoot women, and I would like to hear from you what you would describe to the listeners as a Blackfoot female.
I think we're Pikanakis, we're part of the Sikshigatsitapi, which is the Blackfoot Confederacy. And the women, we understand if we're reared in that way of life, our traditional way of life, we understand our position in our communities in a sense. One of the things is when that rearing is skewed, and then we go and find different ways of living our traditional ways, we tend to always follow one of the main teachings, and that's one of the teachings that I always carry is if I'm going to do a pipe specifically for everyone, like male, female, I would like a male to be present. Like we work together. In whatever situation we do, there's always a male and female presence. And in our role as Pikanaki, the male needs to be there. But in situations where I'm doing it just for like a group of women, then I'm okay there, but as long as I have a helper, And I think it's just like any other situation. I know one of the things, like following our ways specifically, I know that our women, the Blackfoot women, they don't go into sweat lodges. They believe in that we as women, we do our own cleansing, and the men are the ones that require to cleanse in the lodges. So my mother is 80 years old and has never been in a sweat lodge. Not 80, she's 90 years old. I'm kind of gifting her with 10 years less of her life.
Time is weird right now.
Yeah. But she's never been in a sweat lodge all her years. I know one of the conversations we had a while back is she told me I was so close to going in, but she chose not to because of what she believes. And I think a lot of the teachings that I carry is through her, like her understanding of where she came from and who her parents were, who her grandparents were, who her teachers were. Like a lot of the things that she shares with me, those are the things that I carry out. And even being in a position where, for my late husband being his wife, I had a position that I needed to carry out, as well as he had his responsibility too, as well, as an Indigenous woman, as a woman in ceremony.
So yesterday I was present for the pipe ceremony, and it was beautiful. And I'm just curious, and I don't know if this is something that is talked about, but when you're doing this, it's almost like stroking, kind of. It looked like a beautiful dance between you and Christy. Do you guys kind of have like a connection in that moment?
I think when we talk about connection, I think it's everyone present. I think there's no only specific to individuals. I think it's everybody that's present within that moment.
Within the circle?
Yes.
Yeah, it was a beautiful ceremony, and I found it interesting that you had the door that was open there for people to kind of come in and out. Can you just explain why?
Well, one of the processes that we used, because we wanted everybody in the circle and not have barriers restricting their presence. So how we fixed the circle was having everybody within the circle and not have barriers like those beams in the wall, blocking people and, splitting that, almost like splitting the people. I think it was one of the things too is just utilizing that process of having that space where there's an opening where people can come into the circle instead of having it, people walking in and out and through people, and just have that form of respect for individuals that are within the circle.
And is that keeping kind of everybody connected? And you mentioned the ancestors and the spirits, kind of, you didn't want there to be any kind of blockage, I guess. Am I understanding that correctly?
I think in situations when we're like in ceremony, there's certain things we can, go public, like go into what we're talking about, but then there's certain things, it's kind of like confidentiality. What is said in here stays in here, like a sacred, not in a sense is sacred, but in a sense what's in there stays in there. Instead of like trying to describe it to individuals, it has to be their presence involved in the ceremony. I can't say this is the way it is and then mark it in stone, because it isn't. Every ceremony is different, and what took place was for that moment. So trying to put it into words or trying to put it into a structure, it doesn't happen in a sense, because what was experienced may have been experienced by you, and then somebody sitting next to you may have experienced it in a different way. Like everybody is their journey, and ceremony is their journey.
I guess part of the healing process is just letting it be what it is.
Yes. Yeah. Allowing that person to experience it. But one of the things that I'm grateful for is for your presence, for you coming into it, and actually being a part of it. That is the gratitude I have, is having all the individuals come in and be a part of it, because they are hands-on, they are directly involved in being a part of it. And that's the only way I feel is learning our ways, is to actually journey into it and not read it in a book or not, try to put it into a structured process, but just to be a part of it.
You're very vocal about being sober for 42 years, and congratulations. That's an amazing accomplishment. What do you say to some of the listeners that might be struggling with addiction, or even not addiction, but just struggles in general? I mean, the last 2 years was hard, right? Do you have any advice for people listening?
I think a lot of it is the change has to start within yourself. You have to make that change. You have to want that change. And that sometimes change, and it's always been kind of noted that change is hard, but really change isn't hard. The hard part is making that decision to make that change. And you're the only one that makes that decision to make change. And if you want to do it, you will do it. It's not going to be easy at the beginning, because it's not. But to continue to strive for like peace or harmony or, contentment, those are the things that you work towards on a daily basis. like one day at a time, like just quoting from the 12-step program. It's one day at a time. Today I don't take a drink or a drug. Tomorrow I'll do the same thing. I won't take a drink or a drug. It's just every day is a new day.
You've said a few times that you can't change anybody and that it needs to come from themselves.
Yes.
Which is hard to watch somebody who's in pain or who's struggling. How do you, I guess, support people who are going on their own journey but just not quite ready to make that change yet?
I think one of the things is not to judge, not to label, but just to be present. Be present in a compassionate way. Walk with them, not walk ahead of them or not walk behind them, but walk with them.
Going back to talking about the ceremonies, what leads one to being able to lead them and practice them like yourself and like Christy?
I think it's just doing them. Doing them for a number of years and just being... I think one of the things, like just to totally answer that question, is you just work for Creator. And you become Creator's instrument.
And now, going back, I want to talk about Northwestern Polytechnic as an elder in residence. What goes into that? Are you there for speaking engagements? What goes into having that title with the college?
I think part of it is based on the academic piece. Like, first of all, it's about education. Educating everybody around you. Educating the whole faculty as a whole, in knowing our Indigenous ways, sharing that knowledge. It's shared-based knowledge of sharing knowledge. And I think one of the greatest things there, as the elder in residence, is supporting the students to make their journey as successful as possible. And help them in their own obstacles, like feeling that sense of not belonging, or feeling that sense of they don't fit here, but ensuring them that they've made this commitment, they've had a dream. Let's fulfill the dream. Let's accomplish what you've set out to do.
So I guess just one last question.
Mm-hmm.
We ask this to all the guests. What does reconciliation mean to you?
I think reconciliation means is coming together and working together. I think the best description of reconciliation is the first contact people, and which is down east in eastern Canada, the Six Nations, how they came and met the colonizers for the first time, and they created the two-road wampum. Is you walk together, not walk on top of each other, but walk together. I think that's reconciliation. You come together and learn the understanding. Nobody is above each other, or below each other, but we work together. Because there is a lot of work to do. Not only is understanding ourselves, but what can we do in survival? Because the world is changing. We see it every day. Like you're just talking about COVID, we see illnesses coming in that have never been here before. How do we survive together, as a human race? How do we do that? And that's where we help each other, understanding each other, and helping each other to protect what we can give to the next 7 generations. Like, what can we do to help restore this earth? What can we do to help work together and understand each other? Because we've never went away as Indigenous people. You know, we talk about some of the languages being lost, but we all have the ability to learn language. We all have it. You know, we can go and take Italian, and go French, or, you know, we can go Blackfoot Cree. We can learn a language. We have that ability. We just got to break down what has been, for centuries, indoctrinated in our minds, that our ways weren't the right ways. We have to break that barrier and help each other break those barriers and work together to make a better society. I think that's part of reconciliation. There's a lot of political stuff, but I don't get into political stuff. I'd rather just do ceremony and just pray and do what Creator has set me out to do.
I thought of one more question. You had mentioned that you had a very close bond with your dad.
Mm-hmm.
Can you just talk a little bit about that?
It's ironic that you ask, because today's June 1st, and it's 57 years since he's been gone.
Mm.
And I was only 10 years old when he left. So I was 10 years old 57 years ago. And today's the anniversary death of my father, Ojibwe-English. The bond was, I learned a lot. I learned how to work. I learned a lot of things that I don't know, but I just learned. He taught me a lot. There was 14 of us in our family. There was 8 girls. And out of the 8 girls, I was the only one that had 15 dolls. Like, I had all these dolls, eh? And towards his death, he was building a new chicken house, which was really large, probably from that over there to the door. That's how big the chicken house was. And our old chicken house was like about the size of the bathroom. That's small.
Oh, that's
and he
quite a
gave
big
me
difference.
that. Yeah, he gave me that house. It was a house, eh? He gave it to me to put my dolls in.
Oh.
While he worked on the chicken house just outside of where that, you know, the small chicken house was, which was my doll house. And I remember putting all my dolls into those coops. And then there was a stoop. I put a blanket on the stoop, and that's where I'd sit with my dolls. And one thing if I think back to it, I'd never remember cleaning that house. So you could imagine what was in that house. And just those things. And he used to make me dolls made out of wire. You know, just like in the evening on downtime. Like, it was just that bond. I remember sitting on him, holding his arms, like, just, you know, just that bond.
Is your daughter named after him?
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
Yeah. Omarla, after my mom and my dad, Omarla Louise.
Mm. That's
Yeah.
very nice. Well, thank you for sharing today, and I really appreciate you talking with us. And I know you have a busy schedule, so we'll probably let you go.
Okay. Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for coming.
And I really encourage people to, you know, do further education and attend Grand Prairie Northwestern Polytechnic.
Hey guys, it's Trey here. One thing that we forgot to note in the intro is that our interview with Keith Secola was cut short due to the fact he had to go on stage and talk at the conference. And it was the last day of the conference, so we were unable to get more time with him. But the following day, he did an interview on Moose FM with Warren Dub Craig, and we used some clips from that interview. So we're going to kind of cut between the conference interview and the interview that he had with Dub.
what I've read about you and I've heard about you from Trey and some of the other people who've attended the conference, you talk a lot about and perform kind of like music is healing is sort of a major theme in our idea. Tell me a bit about that. What is it about it that makes it healing music?
Well, I think, like just as if we go to our doctor and he'll tell us, you have to have less sodium and less processed foods. Music is like that. We got to consume more organically so that we normalize, just someone playing a guitar and singing an original song. It doesn't make us uncomfortable or it doesn't make us say, I didn't hear that on the radio, so it can't be important or it can't be good. Somebody else gives us definition. By taking this organic step, I feel we begin to step in journey in healing ourselves. And sound is at the portal of that healing, sound and pitch. I always say the sound of motherese, the sound that a baby can recognize, the way a mother talks to an infant. Hey, baby, how you doing? Or we do that with our tones and pitches. And so we create this concept called motherese. I call it fatherese, too, like hey, singing to an infant or singing to a child. And so I think pitch is at the portal. And this is what I mean by healing through music. Just listening to that, puts us in this normalization of how music should work medicine on us. And let the pitches, let the happiness and kindness of these tones come out in harmony. And so that's kind of what I mean.
I wanted to ask you this. You've got a song, it's probably your best known song, Indian Cars. I don't think it's a happy song. Would you say that's fair to say? Like it's kind of a, kind of identifying an experience, right? In a way. Do you think all kind of music can offer this sort of medicine, this healing, or is it certain kinds and ways to do it that would?
I think you could look at it in a criteria, almost like a 4 criteria thing. One, is it entertaining? Is a song philosophical? Is it spiritual? Not so much religious as far as this or that, and nothing against that. And then is it metaphysical? Like, I wrote this song, Indian Cars. Does it belong to you or your brother, somebody in your family, where it gives the song everybody access to it. It's like truth. Everybody has access to it. And I believe in this movement that Native people are and all people are in coming to truth is sometimes we lead people gently to a brutal truth. And the songs like Indian Cars is that. And it's a rock song, and it does, some identify it as a place in history and time. But what has happened is it's become an anthem for our people and Native people, and a lot of people think it's our song in the sense that no big movie, it has been in movies, but it wasn't a movie that made it famous. It was a grassroots movement, playing the song, and then other people playing it, and other people posting it and things. And so over the time, it's become that metaphor of freedom and of living a good life.
Would you like to play a bit of it for us?
No, I'll play a little bit of it. I know this is wonderful to be here this morning, and in this area. I call this a Native Americana fingerpicking, North Americana Turtle Island fingerpicking. I got a rock version with big rock drums and everything, and we're spoofing on a stereotype beat, boom, boom, boom. And so I think we got to use humor a lot. I've been riding in my Indian car, the pound of the wheel drumming in my brain. brain. My dash is dusty, plates are expired. Please, Mr. Officer, let me explain. I gotta make it to a powwow tonight. Be singing 49 down by the riverside, looking for sugar, riding in my Indian car. And then it has a chorus in it. Everybody has access to this. Here's a short verse. My car is dented and the radiator steams. When headlight don't work, the radio can scream. I got a sticker, says Fort St. John Power. I stuck it on my bumper. It holds my car together. We're on a circuit of an Indian dream. We don't get old, we just get younger. And we're flying down the highway, riding in our Indian car.
That was wonderful. Thank you, Keith.
Yeah.
I really appreciate it. Of that song, what do you think when you wrote it? Were you thinking about healing?
Kind of. I got the idea. I wrote it, seen it written on the bathroom graffiti, carved into a wall, and at that time it was spelled like, I changed the spelling with the letters N, D-N, kind of like in a phonetic thing about the caligula of time and age. Sometimes it isn't dynamic enough for us. We move too fast to say, like, the words in the old colonialisms didn't move as fast as we need them. And so I put that song to the underground, and so I was aware of things like that, like the richness of being poor. I got a sticker that says Indian Power. I stuck it on my car. It holds my car together. But that's all of us. It's not just a native thing. It's an economic thing, that belongs to everyone who's had any poverty ever to face. And a lot of times in the face of dire economic situations, you use humor and wit to get around things. And for our native people, the monologue and dialogue has been pretty stark, and so now it's time to ride into the light.
Mm-hmm. When you kind of talked at Healing the Hoop, what did you leave people with at the end? Did you say, here's action you can take in your life that can help you heal, that can help you maybe heal others with music?
Oh, yeah, actually, I talked about the power that we have individually. And really, that's where the step has to come. Mm-hmm. I talked about the present tense, about mindful meditation to the present tense, so we let the anxiousness of tomorrow and the pain of yesterday and just accept where we are today. And that's the first step of healing. And I wanted people just to accept where we are and take a step forward. And there was a bunch of other great speakers at this conference, and my friend Art Napoleon was a musician, and he's on a TV show, and he was wonderful. And the promoters that put on this event, Busybody Enterprise, and what they brought to this community, I could see the seeds planting. I could see that already one of the native communities wanted to do it again in the fall. So I could see the necessity that people like. And so, it was magical.
Wow.
Obviously, you're very inspirational to many, many, many people. What is it like meeting people who've obviously been, playing your music for so many years, and they're so excited to see you, and you're obviously an inspiration? How's that reception?
Well, to me, it's a humbling thing, because you learn to be to give the music to the people, and that's part of the process, like that comes with it. And I really enjoy meeting people, though. Like when you did that Indian Cars video, there was that little baby. It reminded me of a grandson I have, and so when you're on the road, that's kind of how you connect too, with feelings and people, because it's very archetypical, like the same thing. And I think human consciousness is much closer than we realize. The emotional feelings that we have are so much the same in the thoughts we have, and I just think maybe they made 7 archetypes of the human body and just started changing things about it, like short or tall, and black or white, and hair color and eye color and skin color and things like that. And so you can see the world of human beings, and you realize that we're pretty close, like even in our consciousness and things like that. We think we're very separate, but I think we're very close. We connect like hummingbirds. I feel like hummingbirds can kind of speak with codes, and human beings can too, where you don't have to say, like, tell me your life story, but I can feel you, I can feel you. And so these codes come with so much more things that you can unravel, maybe not at the present moment, maybe at a present moment in the future. And you kind of can understand people, like maybe what they said, maybe they like a certain song, or they said a certain thing to you. I had an elder come up and tell me a story about Arizona, and I seen him today, and I mentioned it to him, and it really made him smile and laugh that I would, remember. So there's a sincere contact, and these people are making these steps in the healing journey. Some of them are far along their journey, and some of them have just started. And so you see the whole spectrum, the abyss of humanity. And so you come here and you make friends, and you give people the best of what you want to. When you play music for people and share, it's a real alchemy. It's a real creation of vibration and sound and pitch and tone. And it's a thing of making people come together. I call it conducting a modern ritual, making people sing and dance. And, that's what the ritual and things were about in ceremonies, is making people happy and heal. And we're like 1 or 2 steps along the way of this journey. And that's what I felt from these people, from the communities. And I could see kind of the neat thing when they'd go around and introduce the communities, certain characteristics even of them. And I think it's more significant of travel and seeing people and types and being around Native communities out throughout Turtle Island.
Make sure you guys subscribe to Before the Peace using your favorite podcast app or at energeticcity.ca/podcasts. And make sure you follow us on Twitter at @BeforeThePeace_.
If you have a guest or program idea, email beforethepeace@moosefm.ca.
See you next month.
Ciao.